अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकाया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः.
It's a great pleasure to come back to ISV for hearing and chanting, and welcome everyone who's joined us on the internet tonight, rather the universal community for hearing and chanting all over the world. To keep the vibration going, we take any means, and by staying close to the vibration, it will enter within the core of the heart, and Krishna, who's there within the heart, and recognizes our sincerity in putting ourselves in front of transcendental sound vibration for our own good, even if we may not have realized its full potency yet. If we have some faith and we're able to come close, then he'll make the special concession to help us become purified. Shrinvatam swa kata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantaksto hyabadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Because Krishna is within the heart, and because we take advantage of the transcendental vibration, then Krishna helps cleanse the heart from within. So congratulations to everyone who's joined tonight to continue that process. I'd also like to welcome back my great friend Satyadev Prabhu, who's just recently back from the Far East and doing outreach, which is actually kind of perilous in that in many of the countries he goes to, it's not looked upon very kindly by the authorities, but he avails himself anyway. I won't mention any names or countries or anything like that. So we'll start with the kirtan, and then tonight we're going to talk about clearing the mist of ignorance. How come it's going right off the end a little bit? See the E? Yeah. Did that last time too. Okay. Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Premanande, Pre-Kishore Harmonium. Come on. For the Kartal players. For the Hare Krishna singers. Go Premanande. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati swapadantikam vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagna Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo. So the clearing the mist of ignorance, what is this mist? Well, I have to admit myself that I have no idea how I got here. I have no idea how I got in this country. I just ended up here. And I really didn't even know how I got to this temple. Somehow I was directed one step after another. There was an unseen hand directing me one step after another. And practically none of us have an idea of what this material world is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says it's a huge banyan tree, and we're in the middle of it, and we can't see the beginning or the end, where its foundation is, how we fit into it. And in the Gita, Krishna says that if one goes against the laws of nature, then there's a reaction to that. And the kinds of reactions I'm getting now, the kind of reaction I'm living within, this body is a kind of reaction to my previous activities, as Krishna explains in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I've attained this particular set of senses, which is called the body, because of my previous desires and activities. All this is unknown to me. I can only hear about it from a higher source. Adhoksaja means that person who lives beyond the description of the alphabet. You may say ABC through Z, but you still can't explain him properly, and he's beyond my vision. And Shastra says, Atashi Krishnama ni nabhaved grayam indriya. The senses can't perceive him. It's impossible. If a dog runs through San Jose, then he won't understand what are telephone poles, except for his own purposes. He doesn't know they carry electricity. He doesn't know what fire hydrants are. He doesn't know how the structure of the city works and that there's a mayor and so forth, and neither do I. I'm in the midst of ignorance. And then I speculate about different ways to move in this world, and because of that, there are reactions, and I become more deeply entangled in the material world. Then, of course, there are desires, which remain unfulfilled and seeking after those desires like a merchant going into the forest. Like this picture here. Merchant goes deep into the forest and becomes lost. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. How the living entity comes to the material world thinking, I'll get something for myself here, and then becomes lost in this deep, dark forest. And it's really scary being lost. And we get a kind of an amnesia in the material world where we forget our identity, a severe identity crisis everybody has in the material world. And everyone pretends they know who they are. So if you ask somebody, who are you? Someone will say, my name is Mr. John, and I'm an American. But actually, that's not the real identity of Mr. John. Mr. John's an actual living entity beyond the designation of the body as an American or even a male or a female or a cat or a dog. The living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna from the spiritual world. So this mist of ignorance is something that someone who's awakening realizes he or she is in. In fact, when the great brothers Rupa and Sanatan came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said, everyone says we're very learned. We know so many languages, we can manage a whole government, we have so much money, but we're so foolish we believe it and we don't even know who we are. We can't even say who we are. So realizing that one is in the mist of ignorance and covered is a very good starting point to call out to Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calls out, my dear Lord, I am your eternal servant, but somehow or other I've fallen into the ocean of this material world. Kindly pick me up and fix me as a speck of dust at your lotus feet. This is a prayer by the sincere devotee who realizes I'm fallen. Somehow or other, he says, somehow or other I've fallen into the ocean of material existence. If you look at the ocean, you can see that no matter how strong a swimmer one is, once you're in the middle of the ocean with no help, no boat, then you cannot survive. And similarly, we cannot survive in this material world without the help of a superior power. So we have to call out for this help from our superior power who's helping us at every moment, directing our senses, giving us intelligence, and sincerely cry out. And what do we want? Kindly pick me up and fix me as a speck of dust at your lotus feet. This is the prayer Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us. This is what to ask for. Let me be a speck of dust at your lotus feet. It means be an eternal menial servant. So there's the swimmer in the material world, and if one cries out sincerely to Krishna, as Prabhupada says, with the chanting of Hare Krishna, it should be with the genuine cry, because there are many different kinds of crying that children do, and only some of them are genuine. You might say that the mother is tuned to hear the genuine cry. You can hear a cry when the child is hungry. The mother knows also. There's a particular cry, hungry. There's just bored, tired. Then something's really wrong and the mother springs into action. You can hear that special intonation in the child's voice when there's a genuine cry of the baby for its mother. It's completely helpless and something's really wrong. And if one can find that in oneself, then nothing else is needed for spiritual life. No philosophy, no Sanskrit, no special techniques are needed, except for finding where is that place in my heart where I realize I'm lost, I'm swimming in the ocean alone. I'm being pummeled by the waves, and it's very distressful to be lost. If any of you have ever been lost, I was once hiking with my father in the wilderness, and I ventured off in a rambunctious mood as a kid and got lost. And in the wilderness, you can't find a telephone pole or a street. everything starts to look, the mind tries to make sense out of it all. Like, oh, there's a telephone pole. No, that's a tree. It's more random in the woods, very difficult, especially if you don't know your way around. It's very scary. I also got lost once in Japan. I was in Tokyo Temple and I went for a long walk by myself, and there are 2 branches to the same river going through Tokyo. So I thought, it's easy, I'll just follow the river. But when I came back, I didn't notice that it forked, and I took the wrong fork coming back. I was walking for hours, and I was thinking, this doesn't look familiar. And when I was walking away from the temple, I was chanting, and I was thinking, I'm so happy, and I'm so liberated. And then when I was coming back, I was thinking, I'm really in the darkness of ignorance. I can't find my way back. What am I going to do? And I didn't bring any identification with me. I didn't write down the address of the temple. And I really couldn't, at that time, communicate to anybody how to get back. Somehow, and I realized the presence of Super Soul, I kept trying and trying and trying. I came back and I found that fork, and in an instant I realized, there it is. That's what happened. Super Soul said it. It's like, there's your way. And there's an intuitive way that we move forward in spiritual life. Of course, it is bolstered by the words of the spiritual master who's following the spiritual master, who's following the spiritual master. And then by the Shastra, which gives the words of Krishna, who's speaking to us through the Shastra. Shastra Yonidvat. This is our mother, telling us how to come home. And from Krishna, from within the heart. And from the sadhus, those who are free from envy and they're well-wishers, they want to see others come out of the mist and darkness. So this picture is how one should feel when chanting the holy name of the Lord. And tonight's talk is really about the holy name, the one subject. This is the main subject offered to us by the great teachers like Karabhajana Muni, who says, in Kali Yuga, there's nothing good going on. It's all bad. Don't expect anything good. Expect all bad, except for one thing. You have a method that's so powerful and that's been infused with so much mercy that if you just take this one thing, concentrate your mind in one place, then you can achieve what practically nobody else can do in any other age. You can go back home, back to Godhead. If you believe this, and if you take it to heart, and you begin to chant the holy names in this spirit, you can chant at home. You don't need anybody around. You don't even need a drum or kartals. It's not an official program. It's from the heart. You can stand before a picture of Krishna and you can clap your hands and you can sing Hare Krishna. And if you can offer this Maha Mantra to Krishna by singing in your house, you'll feel elevated. Suddenly you'll feel that you're getting knowledge and you're getting detachment from the world, because this is the result of devotional service to Krishna. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Jnanam Chayara Haitukam. By this direct service to Krishna, serving Krishna with one's tongue and singing out from one's heart, then one gets knowledge and detachment. It's completely unexpected. Don't think I'm going to get knowledge and detachment by singing a song, but by singing this song, you can get everything. And Krishna will come personally. There's stories about this in the Bhagavatam. He comes personally, or he sends his messengers, just as good. That's fine. Just send somebody by to pick us up. And from an airplane, sometimes devotees get picked up in an airplane. The messengers from Vaikuntha come. They look just like Narayan, and they say, come along. Or from Goloka Vrindavan, or wherever they're taking you back to. So crying out to Krishna with this prayer. So this whole cosmic manifestation is called the Shrishti Leela, this Leela of creation. It's the Lord's play in a way. He's just breathing, he's sleeping on the ocean, and this whole manifestation is emanating from his body. The elements for the material nature come out, and the little globes then become the individual universes floating on the causal ocean. Garbhodakshai Vishnu then enters within those, and within half the universe is filled with water, and he lies on that ocean. And then from his navel pit comes a lotus, and from atop the lotus comes Brahma. And then Brahma is born into the darkest of ignorance. He doesn't know where he is, he can't figure out anything, tries to find out his source, he climbs down the stem of the lotus, he's being tossed by the winds, and then he does what is intuitive to those who are sincere. He begins to pray to Krishna. And he hears the words, tapa, tapasya, do tapasya. And the Brahma Samhita tells us that the divine Saraswati appeared before Brahma. Uvacha puratastasmai tasya divya Saraswati kama krishnaya govinda he gopi jani tipi balabhaya priyavanir mantram te dasati priyam tapastam tapa etina tavasiddhir bhavishyati. And she said, you'll attain all perfection by this mantra. Just take this mantra and do this as tapasya. Repeat it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. That's a lot of tapasya, right? It seems like it sometimes because the mind's going, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to chant. Tongue's lazy. Everyone's lazy. If you try to, that's why you have to have regulated practice of devotional service. Say we're doing this no matter what. Moving all the senses in one direction every day is a big chore. Everyone says, I'm ready, I'm going to go to sleep. Somebody else is hungry. Somebody else wants to go look out the window, or more likely the internet. And to actually do the tapasya, to focus in one place and actually use the tongue, and then find that place in your heart where you can say, I'm helpless, and call out, like the genuine cry of a baby for its mother. That's some hard yoga. Best time is in the morning, before anything starts happening. So, this Srishti Leela is the Lord's Leela, and somehow or other we're in it. We're not performing Leela, though. The living entities that come to this material world are overwhelmed by the modes of material nature. And it all starts with free will. We have these choices, always have the free will to choose Krishna. And I used a picture from the Bible, because Adam and Eve, they had this choice about the apple. And these two roads are there. This is very profound concept that we have free will. We can decide to go this way or that way. And in every second, we have the free will to choose one path or the other. To be in good association, to have a structured program so that you know how to regulate the senses, so you don't make wrong choices. Oftentimes what you get from the senses is mission creep. You know what mission creep is? Start one mission and next thing you're doing another mission, and it just happened to creep over into that, and you accidentally went $2 million over budget. Oh, sorry. We creep into the wrong places. So yoga and this process of bhakti means being aware that we have free will and thinking from moment to moment how to best use our free will. What's the best use of my time right now? That's a good question to ask. Brian Tracy gives this as a means for time management. You only need one question for time management. What's the best use of my time right now? Everyone please say. Now I'm glad all of you aren't getting up and walking out with some revelation. Okay, so free will, Krishna or Maya, is always the choice that we have. And when the living entity, according to the Prema Vaivarta, desires to enjoy separately from Krishna and turns away from him, the illusory potency of the Lord, Maya, immediately takes the soul in her clutches. And you can see Durga there with 10 arms. She has the weapons. And you can see how she uses them here in this material world. It's a very dangerous place, actually. I saw some film of the tsunamis in Japan, the tsunami in Japan that happened recently. What year was that, Satya? 2011? Just happened recently. There's a few film clips that are stuck together. There's somewhere floating on the internet. I want to put them together and show them sometime. And you'll notice this wave coming. It's not high. It's just, you can see it's a small wall of water coming in, and the boats are trying to get out of the way. And when it hits the shore, it washes away houses and cars and people like they're tiny little playthings, and just inundates a whole city. And then it shows another city where the waves are coming in and just washing away buildings and people and everything, just swept out to sea within a moment's time. And I was watching that and seeing how devastating it was. And then I was thinking about Krishna's universal form that he revealed to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and how he tells time I am, destroyer of the worlds. Everyone's entering within the mouths of Krishna, and he's eating them like with a meal. Like a giant would have a big bowl, and he's eating all the living entities like that. Prabhupada says in his purport. I was studying that with Hanumat Prashek Swami once, and he was flying somewhere and he found a picture of a big giant with a bowl and a big spoon. He sent it to me. Here it is. This is what's happening here. And then I started looking at the world in a different way, and I was seeing how this tsunami is happening everywhere, right now. It's happening right here in this city, only in slow motion. Because now that I'm getting on in age, I'm starting to see everyone being swept away. In my family now, mother's gone, father's gone, eldest sister gone, swept away. Where did they go? Swept away by the tsunami, but in slow motion. And then you could get faked out. Maya has this veneer she puts on and think, everything's okay. And if you ask people, say, are you all right? Say, yeah, it's fine. But you're in the middle of a tsunami. You're in the ocean. You're being, Hare Krishna, you're being swept away by slow motion so you don't notice it. In a dream at night, things change so rapidly. They morph from one thing to the next. In this world, things are morphing also, just a little more slowly, so you might not notice it. This is Maya's trick. And make no mistake, if one is here in the material world, and you don't have remembrance of your higher purpose, you're in this clutch of Maya, and she's pummeling us with her weapons at every moment. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Daivahi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. It's very difficult to overcome. And the three modes of material nature, they control us. We're like in prison. We're forced to eat a certain amount, to live in a certain way, and then we are forced to leave our bodies at every moment by this great, powerful force of the three modes of material nature. We have to accept whichever way they pull us. So it's a very dangerous and unnatural condition for the soul. And it's very scary, actually, passing through the 8,400,000 species of life into various ignorant forms. Prahlad Maharaj told Lord Nrsingadeva, I'm not afraid of you, as everyone else is, his loud roaring, his sharp pinching teeth. But he said, I am afraid of your Vishnu Maya. Because one little slip and back into the wheel, and you don't know which species of life you're going to be born into or where you're going to come out next. So, how does one come out of this situation when one's completely covered in ignorance and knows nothing? Shastras talk about agyata sukriti. We get some spiritual credit, even unknowingly. We come in contact with Krishna or his devotees, and we get a spiritual credit. This is a story from the Kartik Mahatmya about how this mouse used to live by chewing on the unused ghee wicks. And one day he came out and was chewing on this ghee wick. And then it started on fire again. And he couldn't get it loose from his mouth. And as the heat came closer and closer, he began jumping. He just happened to be on the altar, and Lord Narayan was standing there watching. During Kartik, you're asked to offer a lamp every day. So the mouse was jumping up and down in front of Lord Narayan, and Lord Narayan said, "Oh, he's offering a lamp. It's Kartik." And in his next life, he became situated in a position where he could take to devotional service and had a very glorious departure back home, back to Godhead. So that we go on book distribution, we're giving people a Gyata Sukriti. Somebody's walking along, minding their own business, and the agents of Krishna, they carry Krishna within their heart. They bring Bhagavad Gita, they bring the holy names, they bring Krishna Prasadam, and they meet people, and they inject the holy name into their lives. So many people have come in contact. Pushta Krishna's wife, Daru Brahma, told me how when she was just a kid, she was 17, I think, and she was wandering in a mall. She said she was looking for something pretty. And a devotee approached her. This was back in 1971 or 2, and sold her a Bhagavatam. She gave a donation, took it home, had no idea what she had, and kept it in her house for a long time. She kept looking at it, and she said it was calling to her. She felt a kind of powerful spiritual force coming from the book, even though she didn't understand it. And every once in a while, she'd look in the book and say, "No, I can't understand this." And then one night, she sat down in front of the fire in her fireplace at home, and she opened the book and started reading it, and it all made sense to her, and it became her main focus in life, this one book. She kept it with her always, and she still has that same volume. And it led her from one devotee to the next until she met her spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and became initiated and followed the process of devotional service throughout her life. So devotees go out to give Krishna consciousness to others, because Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that they understand the purpose of the Lord for this creation is to give everyone a chance to have this reconnect, to get some sukriti, even though at first they don't even know what they're getting. One of my favorite pictures of the year. And here's a quote from Prabhupada from the 7th canto. He said, "Every member of the Krishna consciousness movement is interested in going door to door to try to convince people about the teaching of Bhagavad Gita as it is, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya." And the kids probably surprised that young man there at his house. Here they are downtown. Group of students. If the book goes in one's hand, Prabhupada said, he'll be benefited. I don't know if Flickr has a real good idea. So, the Shastra explains that there are various types of effects that come from the holy name, or that is, people chant the holy name in different kinds of modes, and they get credit for all of them. One is called Sanketa, unintentionally. They can say Hare Krishna unintentionally. So how can this happen? Example is given of a Jamil. A Jamil is mentioned in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was in his 80s, and he had many children. The youngest was just a baby, and he named the child Narayan. And he had much affection for the child, wasn't thinking of chanting the name Narayan or trying to do some kind of practice, but he just happened to call his son Narayan because of his past, and because he was saying, "Narayan, Narayan, Narayan, please come and eat. Narayan, please come and sleep." he was getting the benefit for chanting the name of Narayan, but it was unintentional. Here's Valmiki Muni. He was tricked. Sometimes devotees will trick people into chanting Hare Krishna. They'll say, I don't believe in this. You don't believe in what? In what you're doing. What are we doing? Well, this thing you are, whatever this is. And what is it? And he goes, well, Hare Krishna. And you go, thank you very much. And Narada Muni did a similar thing with Valmiki Muni. He said, Valmiki Muni, at first he had been a hunter, and when Narada approached him and showed him the error in his ways and convinced him to take to the path of spiritual life, he said, I'm too sinful. I can't even say the name of God. We can see this sometimes. There's a story Prabhu tells about somebody who was dying, and the kids were all saying, chant Hare Krishna. He said, no, I'm not going to do that, and then died. He could have used the same breath and the same vocabulary just to say Hare Krishna, but no, I won't do. So he said, I can't do. So Narada convinced him to chant Mara, 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 which in succession becomes Rama, 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 because the same syllables. So Sanketa, unintentionally he was chanting Rama. It became so elevated from that contact with the name of Rama that he was able to see, just like watching a widescreen television, flat screen, in his own room, the pastimes of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, and he wrote them all down in the Ramayana. Next is of the four, it's called Parihasa, or ridicule or jest. Have you ever heard this before? Anybody ridicule or jest the holy name? Yashoda? You seen it? Where'd you see it? And Harinam? People do it all the time, right? They'll go by Hare Krishna. When I used to distribute books in the St. Louis airport, there was a minor league baseball team that was always flying in and out. They're always on the road, it's a tough life. And there was one guy there that kind of liked us, but he'd like to make fun of us. And he'd always get off the plane and we'd be there and he'd come up and he'd start going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And we'd come like, keep doing it. And he didn't know. He was joking around with all his friends, all his buddies would get off and they'd go, oh, leave him alone. And he was like, Hare Krishna. And he was getting this benefit from saying the names of Krishna. Hare Krishna. So joking, one gets benefit. And then stoba, derisively, the example of Shishupal, although from the very time that he could speak, he was blaspheming Krishna. Even baby talk, that was his first baby talk, saying blasphemy of Krishna. But he was saying Krishna, Krishna. And Prabhupada said, if somebody comes by and says, oh, you rascal Krishna people, why don't you go away? He said, Krishna. The holy name is there, and there's benefit from that. This is what the Shastra says. What can I do? So then, hela, neglectfully. Somebody may neglectfully say the holy name. And they get benefit also. And then, back to the subject of Agyata Sukriti. Here's a picture of Maitreya Rishi coming through the forest, and he's coming upon Lord Krishna speaking to Sri Uddhava. And this is explained when somebody suddenly comes across Krishna and Uddhava in the forest unexpectedly as some unseen past spiritual credit that one got. And that's how Prabhupada explains how it was that Maitreya Rishi just happened to walk in and see Krishna and Uddhava and then sit down and listen directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So somehow or other one gets this Agyata Sukriti. So when we go out to chant Hare Krishna, and when we go out to distribute books to people, and prasadam and so forth, they're getting touched by this Agyata Sukriti. And there's an accumulation of that. I would like to enter into evidence in this court a verse from the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, text number 26. When Ajamil chewed food and ate it, he called the child to chew and eat. And when he drank, he called the child to also drink. Always engaged in taking care of the child and calling his name, Narayan. Ajamil could not understand that his own time was now exhausted and that death was upon him. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is kind to the conditioned soul. Although this man completely forgot Narayan, he was calling his child, saying, Narayan, please come eat this food. Narayan, please come drink this milk. Somehow or other, therefore, he was attached to the name Narayan. Somehow or other. This is called Agyata Sukriti. Although calling for his son, he was unknowingly chanting the name of Narayan, and the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so transcendently powerful that his chanting was being counted and recorded. Counted and recorded. Counted and recorded. Okay, now let's hear 3 verses. Microphones are ready? 3 verses from the Shastra that talk about the power or glory of the holy name. Please. Yes.
The most famous Hare Nam Eva Kevalam Kalo Nasteva Nasteva Gatiranya.
Please explain it. Tell us like we're beginners, we've never heard it before.
In this age of Kali, there is no other way other than the chanting of the holy names.
What does that mean?
That's the only way to go back to Godhead.
Just chanting Hare Krishna, nothing else.
Is
that what it means? It says it 3 times, right? It really means it. Okay, you had another one?
It's from the Dehuti prayers. From the Kapil Dev's instruction. He says, Yadanamadheya sravananukirtanad yat kirtanad yat pravanadapi kvachit swadopi sadhya savanaya kalpate kuta punastu bhagavan nudarsanat. So in that says saying, by just taking whose name, Yadanamadheya, and hearing, chanting Sravanadu Kirtanat, and worshipping Yat Pravanad Yat Smarad, or remembering, because Sadhopi Sadhya Savanaya Kalpate, even the person who are dog eater, they are not intensely did, but they cook, and then even they can become eligible to perform the worship of the Lord.
Thank you. One more? Go ahead, we'll take an extra.
Okay. So also in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Brahma is explaining to Narad Muni the benefit of the chanting of the holy name. Iti sodasaka namnam kalikalmasa nasanam na paratarupaya sarva vedeshu drishyate. So he's saying that the 16th syllable of the holy name of God. So I do not see any other means in this age of Kali other than chanting of this holy name.
Thank you.
This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Prabhu kahe chad mukhe suni ek baar se puja. Prabhu
Krishna Nam She Puja
Seshta Sarvaka. So Prabhu, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, like one who is, like Agnanta Sukriti, out of that, chanting only one time Hare Krishna, then he is, like superior than all our living entities.
Out of the whole population, one time I hear somebody chant Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I take him to be the best of the population. Worshipable person, because you can say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, so here we hear that it's called a Agyata Sukriti. It's counted and recorded when someone comes in contact with the holy name. And these are mentioned as we had talked about namabhas, neglectfully, derisively, out of ridicule, unintentionally, and so forth, right? So one gets Agyata Sukriti, and from Agyata Sukriti, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhai Bhakti Lata Beach. There's a way in which First thing that happens when one has an accumulation of the Sukriti is Shraddha is born, or a faith that there's something more to life, and one begins to put one's heart into inquiring about something more. And from that sincere inquiry, Krishna sends one a guru, and from guru one gets Krishna. Real guru means representative of Krishna, will say. And there are many kinds of gurus, several kinds, many kinds. There's the Vartmana Pradakshika guru, the one who first shows one the path. And then there are Shiksha gurus who instruct one on the path of devotional service. Diksha guru, who gives one the mantra, passes the mantra on to the person so they can chant. And then there are other kinds of gurus. These are the three main kinds of gurus. But this is Krishna's mercy. In fact, the Chaitanya Charitamrita says you should see that the guru is Krishna himself, because he's coming to help you go back home, back to Godhead, after you've got this faith. And from that position of guru, then you get sambandha gyan, because what does the guru talk about? What is your relationship with Krishna? And what is your relationship to the material world? No one ever tells you this is a place where there's a tsunami coming through. It's in slow motion, but you're going to get bowled over. Don't try to get comfy here. Don't get cozy. The advertising will throw you off. That malt liquor I saw when I was a kid, it had an advertisement for the malt liquor. It was Black Dog or something like that. And the catchline was, it gets you cozy. Everyone wants to get cozy. Don't get cozy. Get sambandha gyan. Learn how to distinguish the material from the spiritual. See the difference between you and your body. You're not your body. Don't get cozy. So sambandha gyan means you have to hear it regularly, you have to hear it constantly from your Shiksha Guru. Always hearing what's the difference between body and soul. Otherwise you go to sleep again, you'll forget. You need this constantly in order to take full advantage of this process of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Sambandha gyan. Then from sambandha gyan, one develops this Shraddha Namabhas. Now, the Shastra explains how there are these various levels of Namabhas. What were they? 4 of them we talked about. Namabhas means, abhasa means you're getting the dim light. It's obstructed. You're not seeing the whole thing. Like when the sun comes up behind the clouds, you just see the light. You don't see the sun globe. And it's not the full brightness of the sun. So in Namabhasa, the name, which is all effulgent, Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Binadvam Nama Namino. It's Krishna himself. It's fully effulgent, full of bliss and knowledge and eternality. But I'm not getting the full effect of the holy name. I'm not feeling the prema or my loving relationship with the name. But Namabhas, I'm feeling something, some little reflection coming from the name, some light that's coming through the clouds of the mist and the mist. So in the beginning, it has an effect, even if I say it unintentionally. There's a story in the Shastra about a Muslim who's killed by a wild pig. They're dangerous. And as he's getting killed, because they're taught not to touch pigs, he's saying, how horrible. In his language, it's haram, haram, haram. So he's saying over and over again the name of Ram when he dies, and he becomes elevated. Unintentional chanting. Then what else was there? Ridicule. Someone is ridiculing, you Hare Krishna, why don't you get a job? You should work in a cigarette factory. That's what they made. The old temple, they couldn't wait to get us out on Union Street. And then, please go away. And we left, and then 2 weeks later, it was a cigarette shop. Very good. So, unintentional, out of ridicule, then? Derisively. If you say it derisively, you rascal Hare Krishna, still gets the benefit, he said Hare Krishna. And? Neglectfully. You say it, Hare Krishna, neglectfully. All these things are called namabhas, but there's a low-end namabhas, and that's what we're talking about with those 4. And then Haridas Thakur describes in the Harinam Chintamani, there's a high-level namabhas, and it's called Shraddha namabhas. It means when You have faith in the holy name. You may not have taste. You may not have felt the full effect of the holy name, or you may not have tears coming to your eyes when you chant. But you have faith in it, and you're hearing Sambandha Gyan, and you know this is the answer to chant Hare Krishna. And with full heart, you're trying to chant Hare Krishna, because you have Shraddha, you have faith. He says, does Haridas Thakur, chanting from this kind of namabhas, you'll definitely come to the position of prema. You'll definitely come to the perfectional stage. Through any kind of namabhas, the highest level you can go is to just pass this material world. You can't enter into Vaikuntha. You have to have prema, the pure name. But from Shraddha namabhas, you can go there. So somehow or other you have to develop your faith, and that faith is developed by hearing in the association of devotees. And by association with devotees and by hearing from one's spiritual masters, one develops this intensity for chanting the holy name and can come to the level of Shuddha Nam, which is the pure name. And when the pure name appears in one's life, then one's heart completely melts. And one sees directly Krishna everywhere and within the holy name. And the holy name will take one by the hand personally back home, back to Godhead, as is discussed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Sharanagati, last verse. Krishna Prema. Krishna personally appears. Here's Dhruva Maharaj after all his austerities. And what name of God was he chanting? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you have to chant like Dhruva Maharaj. What did he do? He walked away and went to the forest and ate leaves. You willing to do that? The genuine cry, and Krishna will appear. But that's all that's required. There's nothing else required, just the holy name and the genuine cry. If you can do that, Krishna will personally appear. So now I want to ask my good friend Satyadev Prabhu to come up and talk about this succession. Now here's freedom misused. Remember we talked about free will? He's going to give a talk about this next section, which is how one falls into ignorance, how one comes out of it, some of the different levels of yoga. Can you get him a chair, please? No, they'll get it. So you just come up, let them take care of it. Ramananda, which side? Here, just sit here. It'll be easy. Can you click it? Oh, no, click it. Please welcome Satyadev Prabhu. No, I'll put it. It's a full service operation.
This sequence of describing how we fall into the material world, and then the different processes of yoga that help us elevate back out of the material, back to Godhead. I originally saw this in a PPT given by Bhanu Swami, and it's especially, we use it when we're speaking to the yoga groups and yoga centers, because most of them are practicing asanas, right? And some of them study Patanjali and know a little bit about meditation, but their conception of karma yoga, and most of them haven't heard of jnana yoga. Most of them have heard the word karma yoga, but they think that means cleaning the yoga studio for free. Yes, we're going to do karma yoga today and clean the windows or whatever. So this explains all of the yogas and how they tie together, and how the ultimate yoga or the direct yoga is bhakti yoga. So it begins, usually we write up on a board, we have a picture of the sun, and then the rays of the sun, and the sun is Krishna, and the rays emanating from the sun are the jiva, right? Because we really have no existence independent of the Supreme Lord. And even in this moment, we may be imagining that we're separate, but we're actually never separate. Just we're imagining that we're separate, and therefore we're suffering. But what is the proof that we're not separate from Krishna? The proof is you're the proof. If the sun ray became separate from the sun, what would happen to it? It would cease to exist. So your very existence is proof that you are eternally connected with Krishna, and have always been so. But somehow or other, as Prabhupada uses that word, somehow or other, we've fallen into a state of ignoring God. Not only are we ignoring God, we're ignoring our own self, our own very life. We're completely lost in our mind, identifying with our thoughts, watching this movie, this projection we have of ourselves, never even noticing for a moment our own life. What to speak of our connection with God. So, somehow or other, that's a misuse of our freedom. At any moment, we have a choice to notice ourselves, our real life, and to notice our connection with God, with Krishna. It hasn't gone away, just like the sun hasn't disappeared. But do we look at the sun, or are we absorbed in the clouds? That's our choice. So wherever we place our attention, we're actually exercising our free will. Of course, to the degree that we're conscious, the more conscious we are, the more we recognize our free will. And the less conscious we are, the more we're in a dreaming state. So you could say that a person who's dreaming, like when you're dreaming, do you have control over the dream? No, because you're not conscious. Right? But when you reach that point where you're just about awake, you have a choice to wake up or, let me sleep a little longer, right? At that point, we have some free will, some consciousness, some higher consciousness. So somehow or other, we've ignored ourself, our true self, and our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And that we have to admit. That's, as Prabhu was saying in the beginning, we have to admit that we're fallen, that we're not in our normal condition. There's no reason to try and get cozy here. Right? That's first, the first step. And so the first step really of going back to God, it is to recognize that somehow or other I'm fallen, I'm ignoring myself, I'm ignoring my relationship with God, and I'm fallen into this ocean and I need help. So the first mistake we made is we've somehow neglected God. And to correct that mistake, we have to go in the other direction. But once we've made that mistake and we get captured by the three modes of material nature, we forget who we are, and we take on this imaginary persona. We call it our self-image, right? Very descriptive, but it's a very accurate description. Every moment we have this image of who we are in our mind, and we're looking at it and we're thinking, yep, that's me. And from that ignorance, once we forget who we are in a mess of trouble. We're in a mess of pain, actually. Because now we feel separate from God. We feel separate from ourselves, we feel separate from each other, and really, practically all human endeavor can be traced back to this feeling of separation that exists at the very unconscious heart of our existence. Right? We're unconscious of ourselves, we're unconscious of God, and we feel separate, we feel incomplete. And when you feel incomplete, you look outside. We look outside to try and complete ourselves, so that leads to material desires. So instead of looking within and noticing our own life and our relationship with Krishna, we mistakenly look outside of ourselves, and once you have a desire in your mind for something, then you go after it. And that's called karma, or action. You take action, right? We go by the restaurant, or we see an advertisement, and that stimulates our material desire, and then we think long and hard about it, and eventually we act upon it. And that, what does that generate? It generates more ignorance and more material desire. And then we're stuck in the cycle of action and reaction, in the cycle of birth and death. At the time of death, we have a certain identification of who and what we are and what we want, and that continues on to the next body. You could say, well, in a sense, the soul is never transmigrating, it's never going anywhere, it's never really separate, it never loses, we never lose our value or our being or our connection with Krishna, but once we've forgotten it, it's as if we don't have it, right? You know the example of a diamond. If you have it and you put it away and you forget it's there, then you can't utilize it, even though you have it. I used to, in my old past life of working in the emergency medical field, on a warm day like we had today, sometimes I would get a call in Chinatown, and the old Chinese ladies, they thought that it was going to be 45 degrees outside. So they walk outside with 5 layers of clothes on, and they get heat stroke and fall unconscious. And of course we don't know what's wrong with them, so we used to lie them down and cut all their clothes off and make sure that nothing was wrong. And so many times I would cut through their clothes and I'd be cutting through their money. They'd have all their life savings sewn up in their clothes. So anyway, when we don't know what we are and we forget who we are, it's as if we don't have it, but we never lose our value. But now we're stuck in this we're stuck in this cycle, and so in the beginning, one may the indirect. We have the direct process and we have the indirect process, right? Krishna explains this in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. He says, just as Prabhu was saying, all we really need to do is sincerely cry out to Krishna with full love, completely depending on Him as our protector and our maintainer. Not everyone can do that. I mean, he said, if you can't think of me spontaneously and loving me, loving in a loving, spontaneous way, then practice sadhana bhakti. Practice chanting the holy name. Do shraddha namabhas. And gradually you'll desire to attain me. That's direct. You know, you have to have faith in Krishna to do that. But then he says, if you can't do that, then work for me. That's also direct. You know, you're recognizing Krishna's God, I'm the jiva, His servant. Let me do something for Him. Let me give the results. He said, if you can't do that, then you're going to have to go to the indirect path. So, become selfless. Just give up the results. And from that, you'll become detached, and then you can practice self-inquiry and inquire about the nature of the self, and from that you can begin meditation and actually have a direct experience of the self, like that. So we have karma yoga, where one begins to act selflessly. But he may not be surrendered to the Lord or have faith in God. Right? Just let me try and, I've been a bad person. I used to be very mean to homeless people. Now let me give everyone $1. Right? Let me counteract that. Let me become less selfish. Yeah. The more ignorant we are, the more bewildered we are, the more selfish we become, the more animalistic we become. So let me give up the results of my work. Let me counteract that action. Yeah. But what about the desire for material enjoyment? Just giving up the results of your work doesn't take care of the deep-seated desires of that feeling of incompleteness that's within oneself, that's motivating one to look outside. So one practices self-inquiry, called Jnana Yoga. Starts to, at least intellectually, distinguish between matter and spirit, and begins to renounce materialist activities and begins to cultivate spiritual activities. And at least on an intellectual level, see, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. I'm not this, I'm not that. But still, that's on the intellectual level. One can suppress the desires that are there within the heart. But still, there's the ignorance. There's that sense of separation that's motivating the material desires. So let me go beyond the level of the mind. Let me begin to experience the Atma itself. And the only way you can do that, the mind will never understand the self. The mind's not alive. It's just a perceptual mechanism, like the window of the computer. So the mind cannot figure out the Atma. Only the Atma can know the Atma. So one begins the practice of meditation. One actually looks in the direction of the Atma, looks within, learns to be present, learns to notice the difference, learns how to observe the mind and the body and see that one is Kshatragya, the knower. And then that destroys the ignorance. But it doesn't destroy the original cause of the ignorance. Krishna says in chapter 7, verse 14 of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Daivyeshu gunamayi mama maya duratya mame vidye papadyante maya meton tarantite. Well, we cannot get free of this ignorance on our own power. We've been subjected, we've been put under the ignorance by a higher power. We have to recognize that. So Krishna says, Bahunam Jamanamante, right? After many, many births, one will ask the question, the Jnani will ask the question, the sincere Jnani, who has no ill will towards God, he'll ask the question, I've been meditating and seeing that I'm the Atma and all the Atmas are the same, and I've been under the mistake thinking that there's just one Atma. But if there's just one Atma, then if I'm the Supreme, then how did I ever forget I was the Supreme? How did that happen? That only one who has been touched by the mercy of bhakti can ask that question, can admit that I've come under ignorance by a superior power. And when one can ask that question and submit oneself to that power, then one is correcting the original mistake. I neglected the supreme power. I fell into ignorance, then I fell into material desire, then I got stuck in action and reaction. And so the direct process from the very beginning is to admit, even when one is totally still under the influence of the material modes and very much conditioned, if one is blessed by Agyanta Sukriti originally to have faith in God, then even though one is full of material desires, one can begin to take shelter of the holy name and chant in Shraddha Namabhas, and then eventually come to the stage of Surinam. So there's the indirect and then there's direct. So within Bhakti Yoga, all the other yogas, we give up the results of our work for Krishna. We study and try and understand our situation. What is the nature of the self? What is the material world? What is the difference between the Ishvara and the Jiva? What is karma? What is time? And we also meditate. We do japa. We learn to observe the mind and the body. But we are doing it all with the intention of pleasing the Lord and reconnecting with Him. So bhakti is the foundation. It's not, we're not practicing these other yogas independent of bhakti. If one practices independent of bhakti, then it takes a very long time, many, many births, one step to the next. But one can begin the indirect path if one has faith. Without faith, then you have to go to the indirect path. But with faith, you can directly, chant, serve Krishna from whatever position we're in. So that's the all the yogas and how they relate to each other in a nutshell. Gijo.
So, described by Haridas Thakur in the Harinam Chintamani, when he's asked by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to speak about the process of attaining perfection by the name of God, that there are various coverings. This is the mist. And he gives three categories. One is called Asat Trishna, one is called Hridaya Darbhalya, and Nama Paradha. So Asat means that which is non-permanent, but one has a thirst for it. And if you're living in a motel room, how's the temperature in here for you all? Perfect? Okay, that's good. Perfect's nice. Asat Krishna, you're living in a motel room, but then you start fixing it up. Doesn't make sense. You're just passing through. And this world is impermanent. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. Adyantavanta konteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. An intelligent person doesn't engage the senses in the temporary objects because they have a beginning and an end. So he doesn't take pleasure in them because he knows it's going to start and the rug's going to be pulled out from underneath me. And then I'm going to end up suffering again. Bhoga tiyag. And then I go for enjoyment. I realize that it is a process of suffering to take too much enjoyment, to take enjoyment in this material world. And then I try to renounce it all. And then Hridaya Darbhalya means weakness of heart. Do you want to talk about weakness of heart?
It just means, Haridas Thakur is describing it, this is from the Harinam Chintamani, he's describing it as being envious of others, being desirous of adoration and respect. Of course, this is all stemming from ignorance of oneself. When we don't know our real value, and then we're in a state of doubt or fear. And so you could say that the root of envy is this ignorance or ignorance of self, not understanding one's own real value, and then comparing oneself to others. So this is a big distraction. It's a big form of ignorance that keeps us identified with the imaginary self, the person we imagine ourselves to be. And we stay focused on that and never notice our eternal presence of consciousness is always maintained by Krishna. And that's our real value. And that's the same, everyone has that same value. And so on that level, there's no fear, there's no envy, there's no comparing. That's understanding the truth of the self. But when we've forgotten that, then we're always in a state of fear. Even a person who appears very confident is always sizing, himself or herself up in relationship to others. And that's why. Because we're afraid, actually, we don't know our real value. And we're afraid we're not good enough, that we're not loved by Krishna. And so we look outside ourselves for that. So that's a big distraction. And a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about that, right? And as long as we're absorbed in those different types of clouds that are there in the mind, that obscures our perception of our true self and our true value. And so that's like a cloud that's blocking the light of the holy name. So even though we're chanting the holy name, we can't perceive that it's there, even while we're chanting. And even while we're chanting, sometimes in our mind we're still comparing ourselves to others, right? And wishing I had this, and why do they have that, and I don't, and that person got praised, but I didn't, and on and on and on, right?
I'm just looking at the word asat also, how one has a thirst for things that aren't going to last. You're really not going to get it. And Haridas Thakur says, desire to go to the heavenly planets, or you can describe to go anywhere in this material world and try to find a permanent situation. When people drive around or look around, they're always looking for, where's the place I could actually live here? The magazines often have these productions of the 10 most livable cities. Money Magazine came out with one saying Fort Collins, Colorado is the most livable city. And people started flocking there to buy property because there's still sort of a nice atmosphere in Fort Collins, Colorado, and so forth. And then also the desire for mystic power, to be able to control other people subtly, and so forth. And then the gross material, sense gratification, being attached to things that will go away. The third is namaparada, which means there are offenses that one commits while chanting the holy name of the Lord, beginning with blaspheming or vilifying the devotees who are chanting the holy name. They're the ones who distribute the holy name on the behalf of the Lord, and if one then criticizes them, it's very offensive and the holy name will retreat. There are 9 other offenses. I won't go through them all now. Most of you know what the 10 offenses are. The added offense, which is called inattention while chanting, is considered to be the root cause of all the other offenses. When you don't give attention to another person, if you're talking and then you look away, even if you look for a second at your watch, their mind goes crazy because the consciousness is so powerful. There's this connection through consciousness. And when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you should be attentive and remember that this is the holy name of the Lord. Now, this process we talked about, and we may not be able to see it because for some reason we're being cut off on the right-hand side. But that first one is a Gyata Sukriti. Coming out of the mist means we get some unknown at first credit in devotional service. It's being counted and recorded when one comes in contact with the holy name, one comes in contact with devotees. Then that leads to faith or shraddha, and then one approaches Guru and Krishna to to inquire. One finds out about one's relationship from Guru. Means, what is your relationship with the material world and what's your relationship with Krishna? And once you know what the goal is, then your mind will start to want to go there. Then namabhasa, one begins to chant the holy name. And at first, there are these obstacles which are like mist. The weakness of heart, this desire to enjoy the material world even though it's irrational, and the namaparadas, the offenses, because the criticisms just roll off my tongue. They just come out naturally until one begins to purify oneself and stop criticizing devotees. And then there are other offenses which one has to learn to curb. From that, one comes to Shraddha Namabhas. It means one begins to chant with regularity and full attention. One takes initiation and really becomes dedicated that I'm going to continue this process until I reach the goal. And then the clouds begin to lift. And when you see the sun, when Bhaskar comes, then the mist begins to burn off. And in a similar way, by the power of this chanting the holy name, the mist clears. And one becomes aware of the fact that, becomes aware of everything, that I am an eternal servant of Krishna. The goal of life is to serve him. I'm a soul. You can see the little soul in his body. I'm not this material body. And he goes on chanting with great relish and happiness in Shraddha Namabhas. It's better than the Vedas. It's better than going to holy places. Everything is there within Shraddha Namabhas. Nam bina kichu nahiko aro choda bhuvanamaje. There's nothing else that you can get in this, anywhere in the 14 worlds except the holy name. You put your full attention there. And you come to the Shuddhanam, where Krishna actually reveals his full form in the holy name, because you're chanting without any offenses and with love. And from there, Krishna Prema, love of Krishna, which is the natural state of the soul, to love Krishna. All this is possible by chanting the holy name, following in the footsteps of our founder Acharya, who's given us the perfect process. No need to add anything or subtract anything. Only follow what's been given, and you'll attain perfection. Just chant Hare Krishna, read the Srimad Bhagavatam every day, associate with devotees, do the process that's been given by our founder Acharya, and you will come to the state of Krishna Prema. And when? That's up to Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that just like a fruit grows on its own time on a tree, you have to wait for it. You can't just run up and demand the tree will grow the fruit. It will come in its own time. You keep watering and go through the seasons of life, and it will come in its own accord. Just have faith. And from that position, then one actually penetrates all the coverings of the material world. And although even while living in this material world, the soul has a direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. And when Narada Muni left his body, it was like lightning and illumination simultaneously. The body was left behind, and now he attained his spiritual body. So all this is possible just by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Go Premanande, Hare Hare Bo. Hare Krishna. So now we'll take a few reflections. Any one thing that you heard that stuck in your mind? What one thing are you taking out of here? Somebody grabs you by the arm when you're walking to the parking lot and says, "What's that guy talking about in there?" And you'll say,
Thank you very much, Maharaj. In the starting, I like how you said that this, if you think when you're lost sometime, and if you put yourself in situation, then the same thing we can see, and we can analyze the same situation when we are lost. Similarly, we are also lost in this world, but it's just we have to realize that fact. And so it was very wonderful.
Thank
starting,
you.
and
Beautiful.
that put me into thinking.
Mayota means lost in Japanese. I know what that means.
Your point on tsunami happening right now in slow motion.
Slow motion tsunami, welcome to it, right in the middle of it. It's actually disastrous. And we have to prepare ourselves in the midst of this disaster. Don't get comfy or cozy. It's a disaster. Yeah.
And the second one was the only question needed for time management is what's the best use of my time right now?
Right now. Thank you to Brian Tracy. Yeah.
I really like Prabhu's point on like counteracting the offenses. Like if you commit offenses, you should try to counteract them.
Thank you.
I like the point that every chanting is recorded and counted.
Yeah, you like that, huh?
I like that one too.
And but like that also kind of creates another question in your mind.
Reflections right now. But I'll just tell you one thing, and that is that Ajamil, some asked the question, Ajamil was very sinful, very sinful. And then he was chanting the name Narayana unintentionally. And then somebody may say, but okay, the holy name's so powerful, why did he go on sinning? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it didn't have any consequence. Whatever he did after that. Now, this is not a license because he was unconscious of the fact that he was doing this. If you consciously take it, then you become implicated in the offense. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, like a snake with no fangs was biting him. That's the sins he was committing were not having any effect. A snake, no fangs, nothing happening. Just like those cobras those kids carry around in Vrindavan, they open the basket. You put your finger in, he won't bite you, he's got no fangs. Okay. But don't try it.
You were quoting about Prahlad Maharaj where he says, I'm afraid of your Vishnu Maya.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of you. Everyone else was afraid of Nrsingadev, but he said, I'm not afraid. I'm afraid of, even Lakshmi Devi thought, I've never seen this before, this side of my husband. I don't even recognize him. But Vishnu Maya. Scary, we should be afraid. We should look at the tsunami coming in and see the universal form is scary. When I first got the Bhagavad Gita and I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, I used to get afraid to read the 11th chapter. I remember this. And I think I'm coming to the 11th chapter again and I brace myself going through the universal form. We should feel like that in the material world. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question, but it is based on a reflection. The reflection is that it is very...
That's pretty tricky. You're in law school, right?
It is very merciful of the Lord and His agents that even Agyat Sukriti can begin your path to Krishna consciousness. And knowing about that and listening to the stories and pastimes where Agyat Sukriti has played the initial role, it makes emotional and increases the love for the Lord.
Thank you very much. Okay, last reflection.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So there are 2 points that Srila Prabhupada brings about weakness of the heart.
Yes.
In 15.20. And I'll just read out the 2 points.
Please.
So he says that while one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart.
Thank you. Yes. Actually, we have another seminar which is called Overcoming Weakness of Heart, because it's a conundrum that how do I actually get started in spiritual life if I have this weakness of heart and I can't get started? And where do you get any traction? And we'll talk about that another time. But the place to always get traction, no matter what condition of life one is in, no matter what kind of danger or happiness, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, whether you're happy or sad, whatever good or bad comes to you, go on chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Tai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Tai Gaura, Hari Bol. Thank you to all the devotees who joined us online tonight. Let's give them a hand and welcome. Thank you for the devotees who drove in the dark to come here tonight, everyone. Hare Krishna. And please keep the vibration going wherever you are. There's danger at every step in this material world. The only hope is the holy name. Keep the holy name going. Everything good will come from that. All darkness will be dissipated. All bad habits will be overcome. Simply keep the holy name going in all circumstances. Now we're going to continue the chanting, and we can put away the asanas, and we'll stand up and we'll have an artik ceremony chanting before Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, who attract the hearts of every living entity in this material world, inviting them to come back home, back to Godhead. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.